This is a TAB Media special report on the changes being made to the annual Southern Baptist Convention Pastors Conference. I'm Jennifer Rash, and joining me today is Dr. David Uth, pastor of First Baptist Church, Orlando, Florida, and current president of the Pastors Conference. Dr. Uth, thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you, Jennifer, for having me.
Okay, so the topic at hand is the traditional Pastors Conference that precedes the Southern Baptist Convention every year. And we've been getting our promotion for the upcoming June event and noticed that there's going to be a change, and there is no pastors conference this year. And so thinking about who to talk to about that and what happened with the changes and all, we had to go back to the president, who is kind of funny because you were actually elected to be president of the 2020 pastors conference, which obviously didn't happen because of COVID reasons. So I guess by default, you are still in the president's role at this point. Is that accurate?
Right, that's right.
Okay, so so with all of that, then we got topics we can discuss back to the 2020 conference. There was a little bit of controversy there, but help us understand what took place, the decisions that were made, the reasoning behind what has changed going into 2021 with this, I think, 70-year-old tradition, if I'm accurate on my dates, with the Pastors Conference.
Well, let me just start off by saying that thank you for doing this, because it gives me a chance to get the truth out there, because there's a lot of things that have been misunderstood and certainly misrepresented. There will be a pastors conference. It has not been suspended. The pastors conference will be led by our two mission entities, the IMB and North American Mission Board. So basically, let me bring you to why that decision was made. Whenever we began to get all the pushback on the program of the Pastors Conference, it raised a lot of questions, fundamental questions, philosophical questions about, so is the Pastors Conference under the jurisdiction of the Executive Committee? Is it under the jurisdiction of the convention? Or is it an auxiliary meeting? Well, the answer to that is it's an auxiliary meeting. And so basically, it's a meeting that exists for pastors to come, of course, bring their wives, family, whatever, it's for anybody. But it's really there just so that the pastors can come together and hear people, speak to them, speak into them, challenge them, whatever. So I went into it with the attitude that we wanted to bring people that could speak to us, that would challenge us, but also would encourage us and inspire us. And we built the theme around love one another. And we chose a text out of 1 John. And so we had people, I went back and looked at the last several years, at least 10 years of pastors conferences. And I kind of noted the types of people, celebrities, whatever, that came to speak, so that, that I was in the ballpark of what has been accepted in the past. And none of our guests were outside of what has been done in the past. Now, they weren't all Baptists, and they didn't all agree like we on certain things. But I probably need to remind all of us, we don't all agree on everything.
What? Are you kidding?
Yeah, it's not like I took a poll to see what what we agree on, so I can know who to get. But anyway, as a result of it, there was pushback. And, there's no need to go back over all that ground. It was pushed back on some things. People were different things. I mean, one person was a little too aggressive in the evangelism that they use, who happened to be a fellow Southern Baptist and a dear friend of mine here in the state of Florida. There was a young lady coming to do spoken word, which is it's an art form that is often used within the context of singing or worship music. And she was just going to come and do a 4-minute presentation. She is great friends of this church and of mine. She's with Celebrate Recovery, uses her a lot, and she and her husband are pastors out in California. Their church chooses to call both of them pastors, which when some saw that, it sent up red flags that, we can't have women pastors. Well, we've actually had people in the past who had women pastors, but evidently the word didn't get out. But this time it did. And so there were some reacting to that. And then there were some reacting to a little bit of everything. So we basically came to the place where we were having to make a decision on changing the program or losing the access to the facility. And so the executive committee had made a decision that they were going to demand of us that we change our program, or they would withhold the opportunity to use the facility, which I don't know that that was precedented. I think it was unprecedented. I think it was probably the first time they've ever done something like that. And so we were trying to figure out, okay, do we change the program and send really a difficult message, or do we just stay with the program and obviously send a tough message and try to deal with it? Well, we all know the end of the story. I called our people to prayer, 40 days of prayer. I called pastors across the nation to 40 days of prayer. And before the 40 days were over, COVID hit. And we then, not only did we lose the opportunity to have a convention, the pastors' conference was also canceled as a part of that. Well, we don't really have protocol in a pastors' conference. We don't have like bylaws and constitution and all that. So we didn't have any way of determining a new president. And so we did what the SBC did. We just said, well, whoever was president will continue to be president until next year. And so I said, well, that's fine, but I feel like we need something different. And really, there's two reasons, Jennifer, that I want to point out to you. Number one, when we get together in June, if we get together in June, which I think it's a big if, even to this day, just because of COVID and what's happening. When we get together in June, we're not going to be the same convention. Our churches have been affected. Pastors discouraged. I mean, it is amazing what COVID has done to pastors and to churches all across our convention. And so I began to really pray and think, we need something that's going to rally all of us. In other words, the last thing we need is another divisive kind of issue, because to a degree, we're all hurting and kind of recovering. And so, man, we need to rally around something. What is it that brings us together quicker and better than anything? What is it we rally around? It's our mission. Our mission to reach people for Jesus, to reach the nations for Jesus. I mean, that is who we are. We are Great Commission people. And so I reached out to Kevin Ezel and said, hey, the best thing I've ever been to, as far as I can remember, that was a conference or whatever, was the Sin Conference that was in Nashville, Tennessee, a few years ago. I'm not sure the exact date. But I said, Kevin, I just feel like we need to be called back to that. We need to be called back to send. We need to be called back to the mission. And I said, I'm asking you, would you build that? You and Paul Chitwood build a conference that would encourage pastors to come back to the mission, rally around the mission. Hey, let's forget our differences. Let's put aside some of those things. And man, let's line up again behind the Great Commission and let's do what he told us to do. So they welcomed it quickly. I bounced that off of several, my officers. I told them first and said, what do y'all think? They prayed about it. My staff here, and man, everywhere I turned, that's what we need to do. And one of the reasons was because of COVID and what COVID did to us. But another reason, Jennifer, is the theme of the conference last year was going to be love one another. What I experienced and what I saw happening would be the opposite of love one another.
Wow.
So it let me know we really have some other issues right now that have taken us away from the mission. In fact, I'm not even sure the mission was on the radar. We were fighting over a lot of things, not just the pastors' conference stuff, but there were other things starting to leak out that were going to be a little bit testy on the floor of the convention. So I just felt like, you know what? We don't need any more of that. We need to come together and we need to celebrate who we are as Southern Baptists and Great Commission Baptists. I feel like we need to rally around our mission. And so Kevin began to work with me, and I understand it's going to be a phenomenal day. I think it's just going to be, I'm not sure, I haven't heard the latest from him, but I think it's just going to be a day, or is it going to be
Sunday night and Monday.
Sunday night? Okay. I have Danny, my senior associate in here. He's on the board, and in fact, he is the chairman of the board of trustees at NAM.
Okay.
So it's going to be a Sunday night
Hi, Danny.
and Monday.
Hello.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So anyway,
Mhm.
I think it's going to really rally us, and I think it's going to call us to back to our mission. It's just this year. So in other words, I just did what any pastor of the conference has the right to do, chose the program. And the program I chose, Ascend Conference led by North American Mission Board and the International Mission Board.
Okay, well, that does help because it was very unclear, how that worked. So I appreciate you helping understand that. So in a sense, you were coming in as like we said, as default president because there was no conference last year in 2020 to elect a new president. And as you said, there's no bylaws because this really is a loose
It's an auxiliary, yeah.
auxiliary group. And so, yes, and trying to have who has input, who has control, if you will. And when you were talking about how you looked back at past presidents and how they picked their programs, and the last traditional pastors conference actually happened here in Alabama in Birmingham with Danny Wood as president. So we were very closely attuned to what was happening.
Right.
So that was kind of interesting. And then, I was doing my research a little bit. I looked back and what I found from the Southern Baptist archives, the historical library and archives, it looks like they record 1951 as the first SBC pastors conference of this kind. And anyway, I was just kind of spot checking and going through. There actually were women on the program numerous times throughout the years. And, and again, they had a specific topic but they were actually the speaker. And I thought that was interesting.
I know.
And so then to go back into, again, not to rehash what you went through, but the conversations you had to have last year with the choices you made. Do you think by chance some of it was different because of the age we live in? Whereas in the 1950s and 60s, there was no social media, there was no way to background check people to know more about them. You would show up at the conference and your person would be there speaking to you. Whereas what you would encounter, you put your name, you put your website up with all your names and people can research.
Yeah, I would agree to this, as far as this goes. Social media didn't create the problem, but it sure exacerbated it.
Right.
In other words, it kind of fanned the flames.
Right.
This experience with the pastors conference wasn't the start of a problem. It was simply a revealing of what was already there.
Okay.
We have a lot of division in our convention
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to is a woman allowed to speak?
Mm-hmm.
And who should we listen to or have come speak? What if they believe a little different on this or on that? So in other words, we're independent autonomous churches,
Mm-hmm.
which is according to the way the convention is structured. I think, however, there were circumstances around last year driven by social media
Mm-hmm.
that maybe highlighted those differences.
Okay.
And I think it threatened a sense of unity. And so there were people who were really, just saying, we've got to appeal to unity. We've got to make sure that we plan a program that's going to unify us. And they were saying the program I had was not going to unify us. And what I tried to say was, you're not asking for unity. You're asking for uniformity.
Okay.
We've never been a convention of uniformity.
Right.
You're wise and you're sharp to point out our history and the fact that we've had women before to speak, and it hasn't been that long ago we've had women address our pastors conference. So it wasn't like it wasn't like these things were totally foreign to us.
Right.
It's just that there just seemed to be a lot of momentum, or at least a push toward everyone believing and doing the same thing.
Okay.
So the uniformity became real important. And that's what I heard in conversations with people. Unfortunately, their definition of uniformity would have been different than, somebody else, or their definition of unity. I just feel like that we have to face the reality that we are a convention in a very different world than we were in 1950. And therefore, we have to understand what's happening out there and how are we going to reach this world? How are we going to reach our friends, our neighbors, and the people of this country and beyond? And I think there are people out there doing a good job, but they're not doing it the way we've always done it.
Mhm.
And we feel threatened by that sometimes. And so I think it's just we've got to go back to the mission.
Mhm.
And we've got to go back to what the reason the Southern Baptist Convention exists is the Great Commission.
Mhm.
So let me point something out to you also, Jennifer. I also think we have to reevaluate the protocol of the pastors conference and kind of, for lack of a better word, how it's supposed to operate
Right.
alongside of the convention.
Mhm.
So I have actually asked the officers, and I have asked Dr. Floyd and Greer to help lead an effort to provide some structural guidance for the pastors conference. In other words, we need documents that kind of define what the pastors conference is and how it should operate.
Mhm.
And I just don't want any president in the future have to go through what I went through and have all that happen again. So I think a lot of the ambiguity
Mhm.
was against us. In other words, there's not a lot of things written, and it's not very clear how I'm supposed to operate alongside of the executive committee and the Southern Baptist. So I think it raised a really important issue that has to be addressed, and that is, does the pastors conference have freedom, or is it under the jurisdiction of the executive committee? And so if it's under the jurisdiction, then they need to plan it. If they're going to question everything on it, they need to plan it. But if it can work alongside and just use certain protocols and certain guardrails, let's say, then we'll do it that way. I just feel like we've got too much ambiguity, and it's going to help us if we can nail some of that down and clarify exactly how pastors conference exists alongside the convention. Does that make sense?
It does, and it does. And just to make sure everybody's understanding how the funding works, if it helped me make sure I'm understanding, um, the there is no money that's used from cooperative program dollars
Right.
initially to put on this program, but there's been a longstanding tradition that the use of the facility would be covered by the executive committee, correct? Is that
Right,
Cindy?
and the reason that has been the case is because we have to agree to the set that they use. So in
Okay.
other words, so that when the convention goes in there and they set it up a certain way, I can't come in and just change everything, because then they have to turn around and do it again. So it's really been just, hey, you guys use the facility and use the set and everything. And that's been kind of a gentleman's agreement between the pastors conference and the convention.
And in a way, that was to be helpful to the messengers, right? So they could just come to one location and it all be right there together. There was a lot of, yeah, like you said, just courtesies extended to
And then,
everyone
and then as
involved.
president, you have to raise the money. As president, you have to get buy-in from some of the folks that are going to be advertised, or maybe they're just going to be promoting or a supporter. And then churches are helping you. Uh, Gracious leaders of some of our denominational agencies have chipped in to help. And so really it's intended not to be a draw on cooperative program money, and it's intended not to cost the messenger anything. And so we wanted to provide. In fact, we had plans. We had a bunch of giveaways planned, and we were going to give a lot away to the pastors. And we were really excited about it because we had folks ready to fund that. Some of the people in our church were so ready to do something for the pastors of our convention. So all of that, it was a heartache whenever I realized we weren't going to be able to do it, just because of all the stuff that we lost in that. Um, we actually, it's about $100,000 for the building in terms of being able to access it and to get in there and to use it for a pastors conference.
Okay.
And that is on us.
Okay.
Okay. So it's free, but yet it's not really free. Does that make sense?
It does. And so does that mean the president or maybe the entire officer board, do you all have to go basically call your friends, call people and ask for help to make this happen, right? I mean, that
We had a budget. We were working on that. We had people that were going to be donors and be supporters. And so, yeah, you just have to come up with the money.
do you pass the bucket? Do you pass the hat?
Yeah, there's an offering. But we were going to use that offering to help support a local ministry here, a local missions effort called the Gospel Rescue Mission.
Okay.
And they are making a difference with homelessness. They're making a difference with, families that are just in a poverty situation. It may not be necessarily the type of thing they'll be in for a long time. They need a place to stay for a few nights, or they need a place to go for a few days. And the rescue mission does a phenomenal job. We were going to support them through the offerings that we took at the pastors conference.
Okay. So now what about this year's conference? Are you raising money to put the SEND conference on, or will North American Mission Board and IMB take care of it?
That was another agreement that, Kevin and I and Paul, they're going to take care of that, and they're going to build that conference.
Okay.
And actually, I think, again, I haven't had a recent conversation with Kevin, but I actually think it's actually going to be a part of their presentation. There's going to be a lot of merging of the presentation of the North American Mission Board and IMB in with that day. And so I think it's going to give us a chance to do things a little differently. It'd be kind of cool.
Okay.
Yeah, by the way, the theme for that they have chosen, Paul and Kevin have chosen, is Together on Mission.
Together on Mission.
Perfect. Yes, it's perfect. Beautiful.
Well, and I can see where you looked at 2020 and what happened, and then what was surfaced and what came to light, and then being able to not spark that back up again because you are still the president, and it would have been hard to let go of those memories probably to even move forward. So to come in with Together on Mission, what was the theme again? You said it, Together on Mission.
Together on Mission.
Yeah, and so to come there, yeah, that's an interesting way to kind of break that and bridge it. How will the new officers be elected in the midst of that? And do you actually anticipate it going back, or do you think it'll go forward with a new look?
She froze. Oh, I'm sorry. You froze for a moment, so I lost the question, Jen.
Oh, that's no problem. I was just wondering how the new officers will be elected during this conference. And then do you anticipate this actually possibly being a new model or some other changes happening going forward?
I don't know what to anticipate, because it depends on the president and whatever he chooses. The officers will be chosen as they have been chosen every year. There'll be a moment in the conference where I'll step up and say, hey, the floor is open for nominations for president of the pastors conference next year. And then we'll have, I'm sure, several come and nominate guys. We'll vote. And then we'll do the same but actually though, yeah, we'll do the same for the first vice president and then the second vice president.
Okay, so there are 3 officers.
There are 3 officers.
And they're all one term each? Is that
right? They're one term, 1 year.
And do they typically move? Do they typically move up in line, or is it usually a new slate?
No, they don't. It's really it doesn't follow that format.
Okay.
They're just chosen each year. Whoever gives the best nomination speech, that's usually who ends up.
I love it. So the nominator actually gets them elected, right?
That's right. Because a lot of them you don't know. I mean, a lot of people didn't know me. They just like the nomination speech, and that's good enough.
I love it. And so a one-day event versus a Sunday night Monday is a little bit.
It's going to be 2. It's going to be Sunday night and Monday.
Sunday night, Monday. Okay. And can you give us a little glimpse of what that looks like, or do you know yet as far as?
I don't really know all of that. I just know that both Kevin and Paul are bringing in speakers. They're bringing in testimonies, and we're going to be talking about the mission and what God is doing out there. And we're going to have a call. The one thing I wanted more than anything was a call for pastors to say, you know what, I may be different than that guy or that guy, but I'm together on this mission. Right. And there's going to be, I pray, a big display of unity. Not uniformity, but unity around the mission that we have.
And do you think that's a good move then to move into the next day, which will start the annual meeting where a lot of those discussions are going to happen?
Because I know what JD is planning in terms of what his heart is, and that is what his heart is. I called him and I got counsel from him as well. And so every person I talked to, they just felt like that's going to be the best thing for us to do in Nashville, Tennessee in 2021.
So do you feel like the leadership, all of the leaders that are putting all of this together are on the same page at this point then?
As far as the actual event, I think they're on the same page. I'm not sure how far that same page goes, but
Understand.
yeah, all of them are, they're doing what we've asked them to do, and they're doing a great job. I love Kevin. I love Paul. I think two of the greatest mission sending organizations of any faith tradition on the planet. And I will always be so proud to be connected with the International Mission Board and with North American Mission Board.
Fantastic. Well, Dr. Uth, thank you. Help us know where we can go to get more information.
That's a good question. Well, I know you can go to the NAM website. You can go to IMB website, and then I think they're going to use the SEN conference name as a place. So senconference.com, I believe, is going to be operating where you can get information there.
Great. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for helping us understand and to get our hands around all of this. And I look forward to maybe seeing you in Nashville.
Absolutely. Well, I'm honored to help you, and I'm glad that we were able to clear up things. And I think it's important what you're doing, because obviously there was a lot of misunderstanding. So thank you for helping get clarity back in place.
I'm glad to. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless you, Jennifer.